All right, so looks like we're going deep on hiring today.
Yeah, tons of stuff here.
Articles, book excerpts, even some notes. I see you've been busy.
Always learning.
That's what we like to see. So we're talking attracting top talent, right? But also making sure they stick around.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that everything I'm reading points to a pretty big shift. It's
Yeah.
not just about filling a position anymore.
Right.
It's about seeing people as like a long-term investment.
Oh, I like that. Okay, so you're looking at talent as an investment. So you're not just trying to like plug holes in your boat. You're trying to build a better boat.
Exactly.
I saw this crazy stat about the New York Yankees getting something like 4,000 applications for only 20 internships.
Wow.
Like, if that's not a sign of just how competitive things are.
Yeah, it's wild. It
Yeah.
really highlights how much things have changed. I mean,
Right.
you've got baby boomers retiring, which leaves a ton of open positions.
Right.
But it's more than that. Companies are looking for different things now. They want passion. They want adaptability. Stuff you can't just teach.
So it's not just about hard skills anymore.
No, not at all.
It's about finding people who really get your company, who are excited to be there. Which reminds me of those Starbucks interviews where they do coffee tastings.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not about can you crunch numbers, it's about do you get our vibe?
That's such a good example of how companies are thinking outside the box to figure out cultural fit.
Right.
But even before you get to that stage,
Right.
you've got to get through that initial flood of applications.
Yeah.
And a lot of the sources are saying we need to go beyond the resume.
Okay, so not just looking for keywords anymore.
Right. It's about reading between the lines, looking for those action verbs that show real accomplishment,
Mm-hmm.
and also watching out for those red flags. Vague job titles, gaps in their work history.
So it's almost like detective work.
Kind of.
You're piecing together clues to see if this person is really who they say they are.
Yeah, and that's where behavioral-based interviewing comes in. Instead of those hypothetical questions like, what would you do if you're digging into their past experiences? So if you need someone who can handle pressure, you don't just ask if they can. You ask them to describe a time they face a crisis at work and how they handled it.
So much more insightful than just someone saying, oh yeah, I'm great under pressure.
Exactly. You want those concrete examples. And this is something anyone can use even if you're not a big corporation. Don't be afraid to dig deeper and ask for those specifics.
Makes sense. So even with the best detective skills, sifting through tons of applications can be a nightmare. Any tips from the sources on how to find those hidden gems?
This is where referrals and networks become super important.
Yeah.
Like across the board, the sources are saying employee referrals are gold.
Okay, why is that?
Well, think about it. Someone is putting their own reputation on the line to recommend this person. So they're probably more qualified and they tend to stay with the company longer.
Yeah, it's like a built-in stamp of approval.
Right. And you're more likely to get a good cultural fit too.
Yeah.
One of the sources even said that employee referral programs can reduce turnover by as much as 45%.
Wow, okay, that's significant.
It is. And there are some concrete ways to build a strong program too, like offering rewards for successful referrals, making it easy for employees to submit names, even just reminding people that the program exists.
It's about making those connections work for you. And hey, don't forget about those who've already worked for you. Alumni referrals can be huge.
Absolutely. Staying in touch with former employees who left on good terms is a smart move. They already understand the company culture and can be a great source of talent.
So we're getting a clearer picture here. Deeper dives into resumes and tapping into that network power. What other trends are shaping how we hire these days?
Well, there's definitely been a comeback in using assessment tests, particularly personality tests, as a way to predict job performance and even how long someone might stay with the company.
Personality tests. Interesting. I haven't thought about those in a while. Aren't they kind of controversial, though?
They can be. The key takeaway here is that any test you use needs to be ethical and comply with labor laws. And it should never be the only deciding factor. Think of it as one piece of the puzzle, along with interviews, reference checks, all of that.
That makes sense. So let's say you've gone through all that and you've found that perfect candidate, the one who checks all the boxes. How do you seal the deal?
That brings us to crafting the right offer. And here's the thing. The sources are really pushing this idea that it's about more than just salary.
Okay, so what else is there?
It's about the whole package. Bonuses, benefits, perks, all of it.
So like tailoring a package to that specific person, what would make them feel valued?
Exactly. Maybe it's a signing bonus or extra vacation time. Maybe it's flexible work arrangements or opportunities for professional development. You have to figure out what motivates them.
Right.
Some sources are even talking about these alternative salary models, things like variable pay and skill-based pay.
Oh yeah, I've heard about those. So instead of just a fixed salary, you might tie compensation to performance or to them learning new skills.
Right. It incentivizes people to keep learning and shows that you're invested in their growth, which benefits everyone in the long run.
I like it.
Mhm.
Okay, so offer made, offer accepted. They show up on day one. What happens next?
Onboarding, right?
But it's got to be more than just handing them a stack of paperwork.
Definitely. The sources really emphasize how crucial those first few months are for a new hire. Think about it. You're in a new environment, new people, new expectations.
Yeah, it can be a lot.
It can. A good onboarding process makes them feel welcome, integrates them into the team, and sets clear expectations from the start.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, think assigning a mentor, regular check-in meetings, providing clear goals.
It's about setting them up for success, not just throwing them in the deep end.
Exactly. And don't underestimate those small gestures either, like a tour of the office, introducing them to colleagues, making sure they have the tools they need.
Those little things can make a big difference.
They really can.
Wow, we've covered a lot already. The changing hiring landscape going beyond resumes, the power of referrals, the importance of onboarding. But I have a feeling we're not done yet.
Oh, we've just scratched the surface. There's still performance management, retaining top talent, and what happens when things don't work out.
Right. We'll have to save that for next time.
Definitely.
Okay, so stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into attracting and retaining top talent. We'll be right back. Okay, so we left off talking about onboarding and making sure those new hires feel welcome, but it doesn't stop there, right? Attracting and retaining top talent is like an ongoing thing.
Oh, absolutely. And, one thing that really struck me in all this research is the emphasis on the human element. Like, it's not just about algorithms and data.
Right.
It's about really connecting with people.
So understanding what motivates them, building those relationships.
Exactly. And that starts even before the interview process, with the job description itself.
Oh, interesting.
A lot of the sources talk about how it's not just a list of duties. It's like a mini marketing campaign.
Yeah, you got to sell the candidate on why this is the opportunity for them.
Right. Highlight the exciting stuff, the company culture, the growth potential.
Make it sound irresistible.
Exactly. And once you have that compelling job description, you need to get it in front of the right people. And the sources are pretty clear that online platforms are king for reaching certain demographics.
So job boards, company websites, even social media.
Especially for younger generations and those with higher incomes.
Mm.
But don't discount traditional methods entirely.
Right.
Print media still has its place, especially for targeting specific industries or those who might not be as active online.
It's about knowing your audience and where they hang out, both online and offline. Speaking of reaching a broader audience, the sources also touch on the importance of diversity and inclusion in the hiring process.
And it's not just about hitting quotas. It's about creating a culture where everyone feels welcome and valued.
Right, where different perspectives are not just tolerated, but actively sought out.
Exactly. Like that example we talked about earlier with Starbucks and their coffee tasting interviews.
Yeah.
It's a way to break the ice and signal that they value a diverse and inclusive environment.
It's a pretty cool approach. I think it shows they're really putting thought into the candidate experience.
Okay, so let's say you've got a stack of applications. You've done your initial screening, and it's time for interviews. Any tips from the sources on how to make the most of those face-to-face interactions?
Well, aside from the coffee tasting,
Of course.
the sources really highlight the importance of structure and consistency. Like, ideally, you want to ask all candidates the same core set of questions so you can compare their responses fairly.
That makes sense. And of course, we talked about those behavioral questions, digging into real-life examples instead of hypothetical situations.
Exactly. Tell me about a time you faced a challenging project is going to give you a lot more insight than how do you handle pressure.
Right. And don't forget, it's a two-way street. Give candidates plenty of opportunity to ask their questions.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It shows they're engaged and gives you a glimpse into what's important to them. It shouldn't feel like an interrogation. It's a conversation, a chance for both sides to get to know each other better. And, the sources also brought up the rising importance of reference checks.
It seems like companies are realizing they need to do their due diligence, not just take a candidate's word for it.
Exactly. You want to verify what's on that resume and get a sense of their past performance. But getting truly honest feedback can be tricky.
Yeah, a lot of companies are hesitant to say anything negative.
Right. But the sources offer some strategies to get around that. Instead of asking, would you rehire this person, which can put people on the spot,
Right.
try something like, can you tell me about a time this candidate had to deal with a difficult customer? How did they handle it?
You're more likely to get a genuine answer that way.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to think outside the box with your reference checks. Reach out to former colleagues, supervisors, even clients if possible. The more perspectives you get, the better.
Okay, so you've thoroughly vetted your candidate. You're ready to extend an offer, but they're hesitant. Maybe they have other options or they're not totally thrilled with something in the offer. What do you do?
That's where negotiation comes in. And remember, it's not always about the money.
Right. We talked before about that whole package, bonuses, benefits, perks.
Exactly. It's about figuring out what they value and finding creative ways to meet their needs.
So maybe they're looking for more vacation time or the ability to work from home a couple days a week.
Right? Or maybe they're really passionate about professional development and would be swayed by a tuition reimbursement program.
It's about finding that sweet spot where everyone feels good about the deal.
Exactly. And this is where those alternative salary models can be really helpful. Variable pay, skill-based pay, those can be attractive to candidates who are driven by performance or continuous learning.
It shows you're willing to invest in their growth, which ultimately benefits the company.
All right, so you've navigated the negotiation. They've accepted the offer. Their first day arrives. Back to onboarding. What are the key takeaways here? Well, the sources really stress that it's about so much more than just paperwork. You want to make that new hire feel welcome, integrated into the team, and set up for success from day one.
Put yourself in their shoes. New environment, new people, new expectations.
Right. It can be overwhelming. A good onboarding process helps ease that transition.
So what are some concrete steps?
Assigning a mentor is a great idea. Someone they can go to with questions and who can guide them through those first few weeks.
And regular check-ins are important too, right?
Absolutely. Just to make sure they're feeling comfortable on track, have everything they need.
And those small gestures matter too.
Definitely. They tour the office introductions to colleagues, making sure they have the supplies they need.
It's about making them feel like part of the team.
Exactly. Not just another cog in the machine.
Okay, onboarding's done. They're settling in. But the work's not over, right? Performance management is a whole other piece of the puzzle when it comes to keeping those top performers engaged and motivated.
You're absolutely right. And the sources really highlight the importance of regular feedback, both positive and constructive.
So it shouldn't just be a once-a-year performance review?
No way. Employees need to know where they stand, what they're doing well, and where they can improve.
And it's a two-way street too, right? They should feel comfortable giving feedback to their managers.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing dialogue, a continuous process of improvement. And it's not just about giving feedback, it's about recognizing and rewarding good performance.
Oh, that's so important. People need to feel valued and appreciated.
Definitely. And it doesn't have to be some big expensive thing. A simple thank you, a public acknowledgement, even a small gift can go a long way.
Those small gestures can have a big impact. But what happens when, despite your best efforts, things aren't working out? What if an employee just isn't meeting expectations?
That's a tough situation. And the sources emphasize addressing those performance issues early on. Don't let things fester.
So nip it in the bud.
Exactly. Have those difficult conversations sooner rather than later.
And approach it with empathy and a genuine desire to help them improve.
Exactly. It's about identifying the root of the problem, setting clear expectations, and providing the necessary support and resources.
But if, despite all that, things still aren't improving,
Sometimes the best course of action is to let the employee go.
I imagine that's never an easy decision.
It's not, but sometimes it's necessary, both for the employee and the company. And even when things don't work out, it's an opportunity to learn and grow.
Which brings us to exit interviews. The sources talk about how valuable they can be for gaining insights into what went wrong and how you can improve your hiring process in the future.
You're right. It's not just about gathering information, though. It's about treating departing employees with respect and leaving the door open for potential future collaboration.
Yeah, you never know when those relationships might come in handy down the road. Okay, we've covered so much in this part of our deep dive. Everything from job descriptions to onboarding to performance management, even those tough conversations when things don't work out. What's really sticking with you from all this?
I think for me, it's that constant reminder of the human element in every stage of the hiring process. It's about seeing candidates as individuals, understanding their motivations, and building relationships that are mutually beneficial.
I agree. It's about creating a workplace where people feel valued and supported, where they can grow and thrive.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive. And one thing that keeps popping up in all this research is this idea of hiring for potential, not just for experience.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. It's like instead of just looking for someone who checks all the boxes on the resume,
Right.
you're looking for those hidden gems. You know, the ones who might not have years of experience in a specific field, but they've got that raw talent. that drive to learn and grow.
So you're saying sometimes the most valuable skills are the ones you can't teach.
Exactly. Like curiosity, problem-solving initiative, that kind of stuff.
So how do you actually assess that potential in someone who might not have a ton of experience? What are you looking for?
Well, one thing the sources really emphasize is that growth mindset.
Yeah.
Like, is the candidate curious? Do they ask good questions?
Right.
Are they eager to learn new things, to take on challenges?
They're not afraid to kind of push themselves, step outside their comfort zone.
Exactly. And it's not just about saying you're a quick learner. It's about proving it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
did they take on a project outside of their normal responsibilities? Did they teach themselves a new software program?
So it's about showing that initiative.
Right, that willingness to go above and beyond,
Yeah.
even if their previous experience isn't directly related to the job you're hiring. Look for evidence of success in those roles. Did they get results? Did they make a difference?
It's about seeing the potential, not just the past. Sometimes the best way to assess that is to actually give them a chance to show you what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The sources talk about the value of work simulations or like trial projects.
Oh, yeah.
Give them a real-world challenge and see how they handle it. Do they think critically? Can they work independently and as part of a team? How do they deal with pressure?
It's way more telling than just asking them hypothetical questions in an interview. Okay, so let's say you found this amazing candidate, tons of potential. You're ready to make an offer, but they've got other options, maybe from bigger, more well-known companies.
Yeah.
How do you stand out? How do you convince them that your company is the place to be?
This is where company culture becomes super important. Like really showcasing what makes your workplace special.
So it's about more than just the job itself.
Right. It's the whole experience, the atmosphere, the values, the sense of purpose.
And being transparent and authentic about it.
Exactly. Don't try to be something you're not. Be upfront about your company's values, its mission, its goal.
What makes it unique? What makes it a great place to work, not just a place to punch a clock?
Right. And don't just tell them, show them. Highlight those opportunities for growth and development. Mentoring programs, tuition reimbursement conferences, workshops.
What about opportunities for advancement within the company?
Exactly.
Right.
Do you promote from within? Those are the things that show a candidate you're invested in their long-term success.
Especially for those high potential folks. They're not just looking for a job, they're looking to build a career.
Absolutely. They want to know they can learn new skills, take on new challenges, keep moving forward.
So paint a picture of a future where they can thrive.
Yeah, where they can reach their full potential. It's about creating a win-win where the employee feels valued and the company benefits from their talent.
Wow. We really came full circle here. We started by talking about how companies are shifting from just filling positions to seeing talent as an investment. And that's really what it's all about, recognizing that hiring isn't just a transaction.
Right.
It's about building relationships, fostering growth, creating a workplace where everyone can succeed.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into attracting and retaining top talent. Hopefully you picked up some useful tips and insights along the way. Thanks for joining us.